and for Coastal Progressive and Rainbow Forum on Society Bites Radio, bringing you programs of interest to the progressive and LGBTQ plus communities. Today, we have Brooke ERRETT from Food and Water Action and Food and Water Watch. I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction here, what this is about, and then let her take over and tell you a lot more about what they're doing. The Fossil Fuel Production and Infrastructure and Climate Endgame. Our mission, our food, our water, and climate are under constant assault by corporations who put profit over the survival of humanity. They have seized control of the very institutions that were built to protect us. We mobilize people to reclaim their political power and hold our elected officials accountable and resist corporate control, ensuring we all have the essential resources we need to thrive. This is a fight we must win because this planet is the only one we have. Okay, with that said, Brooke, it's so good to have you here today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what you're doing to help this on this topic?
Yes, thank you so much, Steve. So as you mentioned, I'm with Food and Water Watch and Food and Water Action. And what we do is we mobilize people here in the state of Florida. Particularly, we've been organizing around banning the controversial practice of fracking. Fracking poses huge environmental, health, and economic threats to the state of Florida, particularly because we sit atop a giant aquifer, the Floridan aquifer, which sits under 85% of our state and provides drinking water to 92% of Floridians. We cannot compromise that. And secondly, because Florida's economy is based upon tourism. With the BP oil spill of 2010, we saw 60% of hotels experience cancellations and tens of thousands of jobs lost along the Florida coast, even where oil did not come ashore. We cannot risk this as we have been having spills of just conventional oil drilling in Florida, averaging 9 a year for the past 4 years. When we use unconventional drilling methods such as hydraulic and acid fracturing, the chances are increased exponentially that spills and accidents will occur. And with our precious water and our economy based around it, we simply can't risk that. And so that is why Food and Water Watch and Food and Water Action have been mobilizing Floridians to reclaim their political power so that we can hold our elected officials accountable and stop corporate control through the fracking process. And that's what we've been doing and what we continue to do in other areas as well. But fracking has been our main focus in the state for the past 4 years.
Great. That is a great explanation there. And I, too, realize exactly what you're saying, and I hope our listeners do as well. This is an extremely important issue, and I remember I participated, I believe, with several of your people at one of the rallies we had, delivering a petition and a statement to the office of some of the people who are in control of the fracking industry here, and legislation for the fracking industry. So it is a great item that we need to really address and look into. And tell me a little bit about what led to what is your education, your background, what led to your involvement in this?
Oh, for me personally?
Yes.
Okay, well, thanks for asking. So I am born and raised in Florida. I grew up on a collection of barrier reef islands off the west coast, off of Tampa Bay in Pinellas County. So water and the environment and Florida have always been a massive part of my life. From being a very little girl, I was involved in environmental work and preservation through the Ranger RICs and other environmental programs that I got involved in. As I grew older, I had this passion that I wanted to get involved with the earth and with others and help out, whether it be through social and humanitarian work or through climate work. And it turned out that the two really overlap almost all of the time, except for I thought that I was going to do it through the legal realm. So I went to the University of Florida and then headed up north to New York to go to Fordham University School of Law, where I earned my Juris Doctor. Headed back home to Florida, realized we were in a lot of trouble, that the laws that were on the books, the only way that they were going to get changed was if we actively fought to mobilize people to make those changes. And so I got involved in organizing in order to help push forward policies here in the state of Florida. I worked for a few other nonprofits and then found my home with Food and Water Watch and Food and Water Action, who really pushes for some of the more aggressive, bold solutions to climate policy.
Excellent, excellent.
I'm
going to tell you a coincidence here, and then I'm going to tie it into something. Coincidentally, years ago, I made a lot of money working for the oil industries all over the world and consulting work and so forth. And coincidentally, within hours, you mentioned the BP. We mentioned the BP oil spill here earlier, and that it was a crisis of unbelievable proportions. And they still don't think they know exactly how much damage was really done out there. But coincidentally, that happened in April of 2010. The reason I remember so well is because a matter of hours before that well blew in the Gulf out there, I was aboard a cruise ship that was passing the area, and literally. And we found out about it, and also by coincidence, BP Oil was a company that we were in discussion with at that point in time on other issues. And then at the very highest levels, in fact, this was the very highest legal levels of the corporation. This is prior to the spill happening. That all stopped shortly thereafter. So anyway, my point being that we are all tied together, and the oil industry, the carbon industry as a whole, we have needed them, but we have many alternatives that we can use now, as I'm sure you know. And we've had other people on our show here. We've talked about this, about other problems that we're facing. And the oil and gas industry right now is doing, because the United States has moved into the #1 position of oil production in the world, it is doing immense damage to our environment by the flaring and so forth. And this all ties back into our food chain. I was wondering if you'd comment a little bit about why, it's so important. Well, we should all know it's important because it's the food that we eat. And we want clean water, and we want safe food. But when we have these huge oil fields that are being fracked, and the fracking that we're trying to keep out of Florida here, and which is even the worst fracking, as I understand from your previous discussions, the fracking up in the Dakotas, those flares where they're burning off the gas, is supposed to be, I've just read the stats on this, one of the brightest spots on the earth, even brighter than some major cities, because of all the oil the gas is being flared. What can you give us some input here on what your organization can do and has been doing to try to bring more education to the people in this area, and what other people can do to help as well?
Wow, Steve, that's a great question, some fantastic observations, and feeds directly into the work that Food and Water Action and Food and Water Watch have been doing. Earlier in the summer, we released a report called the Fracking Endgame, Locked into Plastics, Pollution, and Climate Chaos. And it covers a lot of what you were just discussing as far as these oil and gas overproduction to the point that they're flaring the excess fracked gas. What we've noticed is that that's gone even further, because these companies, these major corporations, have realized that this excess gas is lost potential revenue. And because they've overproduced, they had to find ways to artificially increase the price of the fracked gas, which is heavily subsidized as well. So the way they've been doing this is increasing the amount of plastic production, the amount of power plants that are being built for fracked gas, and the amount of ports that they are sending fracked gas overseas. Just by the year 2020, the power industry plans to build 364 new fracked gas power plants, including at least one that they've built in Citrus, which has been a really big controversy, one in Broward County. It will also soon be home to 3 liquefied natural gas LNG export terminals that are going to be sending fracked gas to Europe. Just last year, there were only 3 in the entire country, but if they get their way, there's going to be 42 export terminal facilities. And we also have seen that the gas is being shipped in dangerous ways via trains known as bomb trains through heavily populated areas. Right now, there's one from Hialeah to Port Everglades that puts thousands of lives at risk. And they're also going to be having more of these facilities in Stewart and Jacksonville as well. So this is the plan that big oil and gas has, to build out this infrastructure, to lock us into a fossil fuel future. Food and Water Action says no, that's not what's going to happen. I mean, if we continue right now, business as usual, we have potential sea level rise just in the Tampa Bay area of 42 inches by 2060 and 102 inches by 2100. Additionally, with the increased production of gas, if we don't stop this, stop the infrastructure, stop the production of gas, and prevent things like fracking from occurring, we could face an additional 8,100 deaths annually in the state of Florida by the end of the century. There is no reason that this needs to be happening. Solar is 12 times more cost efficient than building out these power plants. And by adopting simple things like energy efficiency standards, which we have the FECA meetings going on this year, where the Public Service Commission meets every 5 years in order to set standards on energy efficiency, that Florida has nearly no energy efficiency standards. And just doing that would eliminate the need for building out these major power plants. We're currently 5 times less efficient than the national average. And by introducing these efficiency standards, we would eliminate the need for more fossil fuels, and we would additionally have the quickest, safest, most effective, cheapest fix to addressing climate change and our energy needs in the short term to then allow us to address these in the long term as well. Asked a pretty big question there, and I tried to hit as much as possible. If there's any clarification you need, let me know.
You give some, Brooke, you gave some incredible facts there. I've made some notes here to myself to bring these up later with other organizations. We're at 5 times less efficient than the national average Florida. That should tell people here something, that we're not doing something right here with our energy. And you mentioned solar is 12 times more efficient than the regular gas and stuff that have been used. Solar has so many options here for us in Florida if we just start using it. Also, wind power. They because of the natural sea breezes, there are areas in Florida here where turbines can be a potentially productive force as well. So there are plenty of ways to get energy into Florida without having to bring in all this climate damaging